Wow. 1989. This is awesome. How awesome? Let's find out. Hey guys, welcome to Amity Tracks and welcome to 1989. We are wrapping up the 80s, wonderful decade of the 80s. And, you know, we've been doing, really since the beginning of this channel, we've been doing these yearly countdowns. Last year, or the last year we did, 1988, I said in the video, I think it was one of the weakest years we've done. Man, 89 makes up for it, though. God, 89 is awesome. I didn't realize how awesome I was putting all these records together. God, kind of made me sad, actually. A little melancholy, because I don't know. I don't ever foresee having another year come where like this much great stuff comes out, at least that I care about. Anyway, whatever. Let's move. Let's celebrate 1989 in the close of a decade. And before we get to the music, as always, let's talk about what's going on around the world. George H.W. Bush is president of the United States. Serial killer Ted Bundy is executed. The Soviet-Afghan war ends, the Soviet Union pulling out in disgrace. Iran puts a bounty on the head of author Salman Rushdie. I remember that. The Exxon Valdez spills oil all over Alaska. Remember that too. And man, 1989 is a big year for kind of events ending or almost ending the Cold War. You have the Tiananmen Square protests in China. You have the Berlin Wall coming down, in no small part due to the wonderful musical efforts of David Hasselhoff, I think. The Velvet Revolution in Eastern Europe. You basically just see all these communist regimes falling one by one, mostly without violence. I guess Romania was an exception, but mostly without violence. And then finally, Rain Man wins Best Picture that year. All right, but let's get into this music. It's crazy how good this year is. Wow. So, you know how this works, right? I count down, these are my top 10 from 10 to 1, my favorite records released in this year. Talk about them a little bit. And then give a list of honorable mentions, other great stuff that didn't quite make the list, but it's still worth mentioning. And man, I got a long honorable mention list on it. 89 is so good. Anyway, what I have at number 10, I have a debut album from a band that ended up not lasting all that long. But man, when this came out, people were talking like this was going to be, these guys were going to be like one of the big things of the next few decades, and they ended up not being so. Still a great record, though. The Stone Roses. At the Stone Roses debut, if I remember right, I don't have to double check, but then they only released like one more record, and then they were kind of done. But that still doesn't diminish the greatness of this. Is a fantastic record. It just sort of brings a lot of that, sort of British, this sort of resurgence and sort of, I say pop, but rock pop. Great rock and roll mixed with kind of pop, great hooks and choruses, bringing in a lot of kind of psychedelic elements in here too. It's not like straight psychedelic music, but I mean elements of it. It's just, man, start to finish, this is a brilliant record. So I mean, I understand the hype. I understand when this came out. Here they are. The people were like, "Wow, this band's gonna be huge." And then they, like I said, I think it was one more record, maybe two, and then done. Oh well. Number 9. Now, number 9, I have on CD, but I didn't have it out on my CD shelf, so I know I have it. I guess it's in one of my boxes, so editor can throw it up there. But it is Deep from Peter Murphy, the former lead singer of Bauhaus. Taking some of those sort of goth rock sensibilities, but I don't, making it a little more accessible, and it just great. So, Cut You Up, of course, is on there. Great songs. All right, number 8 is a debut. Actually, there's one, two, three, eh, three debuts in my top 10 here. So this is another debut, and it's from a great artist. And she's still around. She's put out some good stuff, but I don't think anything has really matched her debut. I mean, I love this record, and the one after it I think is good, and then the rest of it, I don't know. She got some more success with her later records, but I think at the cost of quality. But I mean, this record, and I've talked about this before in a different episode, but Sean Colvin, her debut "Steady On" is fantastic. I mean, just she's a great acoustic guitar player. John Leventhal helps her produce it, and he's all over this record too. So his guitar just very ethereal and kind of sort of modern folk rockish. She is. I mean, she's a phenomenal songwriter, phenomenal talent. There's just something magical about this record that like I said, I don't think she ever reproduces again. Her sound gets a little bit more mainstream, and again with some more success. But I think at the expense of sort of this unique vibe she has on, and it's just a great set of songs. We Shotgun Down the Avalanche. I think it's her greatest. It's the best song I've ever heard her do. I have to admit, I've kind of fallen off and haven't bought more recent stuff of hers, but great record. Okay, number 7. Talked about these guys. Talked about these different individuals. This is kind of this newgrass, bluegrass supergroup. They only put out this one record, but it is Strength in Numbers, the Telluride Sessions, featuring Bela Fleck on banjo and Sam Bush on mandolin, Jerry Douglas on the dobro, Edgar Meyer on the bass, and Mark O'Connor on I think some fiddle and then some acoustic guitar as well. Yeah, I've talked about Bela Fleck a bit on this channel, but these guys are just tops, on their instruments. And this is I have Bela Fleck's signature on here. I've gotten him to sign. Yeah, he always comes out and talks to you after shows and stuff, so he'll sign whatever. So I've got his signature on a bunch of stuff. But this is a phenomenal record because it's these bluegrass instruments, but it's not bluegrass music. What's really cool about it is they innovate and they do all these really kind of fascinating, interesting compositions that are in these other styles. But there's really not a straight up bluegrass song on here. But it's a phenomenal listen. This was my gateway to this whole kind of genre and these guys. This is where I first learned about Bela Fleck. Actually, was this record. I remember I was in Aspen, Colorado. They had a little record store. Walked in and I was just kind of flipping around, and God bless this guy. The dude who ran the store pulled this CD out. I was like, "You ever heard this?" I'm like, "Oh." And he basically forced me to buy it. I remember that. He's like, "You're gonna buy this. I guarantee you're gonna love it. I mean, you're gonna buy it." So I did, and man, did I! And then I started exploring this whole genre and these whole musicians ever since. But that's a phenomenal record. All right, number 6. Number 6, I say, is a debut. Actually, they put out kind of an EP before this, but it wasn't released in the U.S. That EP was only put out in Canada. So this is their first like kind of like full release and at least release in the States. This was one of the biggest bands in Canada ever. Kind of a cult act, hardly known down here in the States. Um, and this is, like I said, kind of their major label debut. Let's put it that way. And well, however much longer we do these videos, the dog, ignore the dog. However much longer we do these yearly videos, um, you're going to be seeing their records because this is one of my favorite bands, and they're so great. I'll do a video on them at some point, but enough of the introduction. Talking about the Tragically Hip. This is Up to Here. Just fantastic rock and roll, brilliant songwriting. Um, Rest in peace, Gordon Downey, the lead singer, wrote all the lyrics. Guy was a poet. Just incredible lyrics, but great band too. I mean, just God, they were so good. I remember I There they all are, the chorus of dogs. Editor will make a little cut here while I go shut them up. All right. I gave all the dogs away, so they're no longer here. Okay. What was I talking about? The Tragically Hip? Yeah. Phenomenal band. Uh, go listen to these guys. You're going to hear a lot about them in our, all our future, yearly videos. Whenever they put out an album, it's going to probably be on that list. Love these guys. Okay. Number five. Number five might surprise you that I would have it this high on a yearly list, but don't sleep on this record. You're probably familiar with it. It's had some big hits, and very kind of the era. I think people associate these songs very much with the '80s. Uh, this record is well, yeah, I have it high on a great year. This record is so great, start to finish. The Fine Young Cannibals, the Raw and the Cooked. Don't overlook this record. Yeah, the songs. What She Drives Me Crazy and Good Thing. Those were the big hits. Um, this whole record is really just superlative, just great pop rock, whatever music, maybe pop music, but I think they had a fascinating sound. Roland Gift was a really unique vocalist. Um, it's just three guys, right? Roland Gift singing and uh, David Steele on keyboards and bass, and Andy Cox on guitar. And so there's actually kind of a lot of space in these songs. What I detect, and I haven't read a lot of reviews, so I don't know if other critics say this or not. But what I've kind of detected when I listen to it is it's this really interesting blend of 80s. It's an 80s album, definitely, but almost like some like kind of 50s vibe to it, and it's this odd, and just great hooky pop songs, and but interesting, like not generic at all. I like every song on here. I would highly recommend going back. Because again, most of you probably just remember "She Drives Me Crazy," and even if you don't like that song or sick of that song or whatever, the rest of this record is really good. Got great grooves to it, great vibe to it. Check it out. All right, man, we're getting into rarefied air here. Number four. I am going to do a video on this guy fairly soon. I feel it coming. But one of my all-time favorite guitar players, brilliant. We lost him last year, actually around this time, beginning of last year, and this is one of his most fascinating records. It's so interesting. So talking about Jeff Beck and Jeff Beck's Guitar Shop, and this is a trio. So it's Jeff Beck on guitars, Terry Bozzio on drums, and Tony Hymas on keyboards and synthesizers. It kind of doubles up on bass on the synthesizers. Well, for one of my all-time favorite album covers. I just think that's so cool. But yeah, this for decades, I have not been able to say whether this is great, just brilliant, or kind of a miss. It's one of those few records where it just every time I listen to it, I'm thinking this is like genius or this is like not, kind of a missed opportunity. And maybe that alone, that it gets you kind of thinking so much, which is odd. It's almost all instrumental. So there's no lyrical content here. I'm just saying instrumentally, it's just fascinating. Um, I mean, where were you? Which I think he does mostly with kind of harmonics, is a stunningly gorgeous piece. There's very little I've heard on the guitar like that. And I saw Jeff Beck live a couple times, and I guess he played it every time, but the more recent one is the one I remember playing that song. And it's just, and watching him do that, because I was up super close. It's kind of a club in Austin, and it was just wow. But now this Behind the Veil is cool, big block. Yeah, I think with Jeff Beck, a lot of times he lays back for a while in a song, so it's not like he's not like, doing Eddie Van Halen stuff or just so in your face and obvious, throwing it out there. So he just kind of lays back, and you're like, oh, it's kind of a cool groove. Something gonna happen. Then all of a sudden, maybe halfway into the song, he'll just throw out these flashes of brilliance. He just absolutely killer, amazing guitar runs and solos, and I know. So listening to Jeff Beck, I've found you kind of need patience, but it rewards patient listening. It's just unbelievable, so great. Okay, well, I'm already excited about it. We'll do some Jeff Beck soon. Okay, these top three. Wow, I'm looking at them right now. These top three, I think all three of these would be in my top 50 all-time favorite albums. Period. Man, these are. I told you this is strong. These are so good. Now I've talked about this record a lot. We did a Neil Young week, so I don't need to talk too much about this. But this is, of course, when he released Freedom. Freedom came out in 1989. Neil Young's Freedom, after a now I'm a huge fan of 80s Neil, but I'm kind of crazy. A lot of people aren't. And this was a true, authentic comeback to kind of classic Neil Young style. And God, this is, well, I mean, go watch my Neil Young week, where we count down all his albums. See how high I have this. Okay. I mean, this is, of course, it's got Rockin' in the Free World, right? Which was his first hit in a long time. But I think start to finish, this is brilliant. I mean, it's daring. He sounds revitalized. Incredible songwriting on here, and nice variety. It's got some great acoustic stuff on there, but then it's also got some of his most kind of brutal, distorted, songs of his career. God, I can't say enough about this record. Obviously, I got number three, which is kind of crazy because what? There are two records I think are better from '89. Well, here's another one I talked about because we already did a week on this guy fairly recently, so I don't need to talk too much about this either. But this is Passion. This is Peter Gabriel's soundtrack to The Last Temptation of Christ, the Martin Scorsese film. And I'm just going to briefly talk again because I talked at length in the Peter Gabriel video about it. It is phenomenal. There really is nothing like this. It is true world music. Gabriel, a lot of it is instrumental, but there is some vocals on there, but very few vocals from Peter Gabriel. Most of the vocals are from, you know, artists from the Middle East and from Africa that he was working with. And I just think this is the moods created on here are unlike anything else. It's brilliant. Um, I'm not going to say ambient or anything because there's actually much more going on, than normal ambient music. But it's just really deep musically. There's just it's this beautiful blending of these kind of Middle Eastern and African musical styles and musicians and instruments. But Gabriel also brings some of his programming and some of his kind of lays them down sometimes on kind of these beds of sort of synthesizers and it's just one of the best mix of those different elements that I've ever heard. It is an absolute favorite. All right, all right. What? There's one even better than that? Well, I think so. My number one album from 1989 is we need to do a video on these guys. I plan on it. Just haven't gotten to it yet. I think they supposed to have a new album coming out sometime soon, but they've been talking about that for 2 years or something. But hopefully this will come out, and maybe when that comes out, we can coincide kind of a week on those guys, or these guys. But The Cure, Disintegration, absolute masterpiece. Disintegration, The Cure. Yeah. Well, I just talked about the moods, created by Peter Gabriel's Passion. Another one that just has this incredible mood, throughout. Of course, it's The Cure, so it's going to be kind of dark. Just this. how to describe this? It's like it's this melancholy, but it's so beautiful at the same time. So it's like this beautiful, sweet melancholy, and yeah, I just creates these soundscapes, and I love how, especially this era, and songs on this record especially, where they really stretch out, and they'll play, they'll kind of start a song instrumentally, and the vocals won't come in until like 2 minutes later. So I think of like Pictures of You on here, right? I mean, I haven't timed it, but it seems like about like 2 minutes they're just kind of playing that melody and just jamming on those chords, and it really sets up this beautiful mood. Now I know there were single edits for the radio and all that, but you listen to the actual tracks. I think they're playing for like 2 minutes before Robert Smith even comes in with the vocal, and it just sets the mood so beautifully. Yeah, Lullaby, of course, I think is one of their greatest songs here. But yeah, kind of the songs are go on, and so that's why I'm kind of doing this to read the song titles. But there's this stretch on here that, and they're all like longer, 6 to 9 minute songs, where after, let's say, right after Lullaby, which is the I think one of their great singles, that that line in there, that guitar line is just brilliant, so great. I don't think that song gets enough credit, and great lyrics and everything else. But right after Lullaby, there's this stretch. It's like one, two, three, four, I think, brilliant songs that, again, from the 6 to 9 minute mark, they're all long and languid and just beautiful. Talking about Fascination Street, and then Prayers for Rain, and Same Deep Water as You, and then Disintegration, the title track. Now they're not all slow. I mean, some of them, kind of drive pretty hard, but they all of them just create this hypnotic uh, sound to them, and even if it's 8 9 minutes, it's like this could go on for 20 more minutes, and I'd be into it. Each of those songs, I don't know. It's just something about this record that just really pulls you in, and I'm not gonna tell you where I rank it in the Cure's catalog, because, like I say, we're gonna do a Cure week at some point whenever they put out their new record that's supposed to come out. Okay, man, wow. Honorable mentions. Let's go through this quick because I got a ton of them. I'm just gonna you know, what a year, man! What a year. Well, I guess here, let's do this while I'm thinking about it. There's a couple of them where I do have these on CD, but these are the ones that I just don't have on my CD shelf. So editor can throw them up here real quick. The Beastie Boys put out the incredibly innovative Paul's Boutique. That's awesome. New Order, their album Technique is awesome. The Replacements, Don't Tell a Soul. Uh, a lot of people felt that was sort of a kind of a letdown from their creative peak. I love it. I like it when they go a little more kind of melodic and pop and all that. I think it's a great record. All right, anyway, let me show you all the rest of these. Hey, I got a cassette. Let's look at the cassette here. Uh, the Smithereens with 11, I think their last really good record. And it's got A Girl Like You, Blues Before and After, Blue Period. I think those are the Yesterday Girl. That's pretty good. Just, great Smithereens pop rock. I don't think they were ever as good as that. Here, let's see. Let's go through the vinyl here, and then I've got a bunch of CDs I can show real quick. Oh man, I didn't even have this in the top 10. This was huge that year. Remember Tom Petty's Full Moon Fever? Right? I mean, Free Fallin' and I Won't Back Down and Running Down a Dream. Those are the big hits, but I mean, there's a lot of great songs on here. I love You're So Bad. Does that great Birds cover, Feel a Whole Lot Better. Uh, Love Is a Long Road. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, one of Tom Petty's greats. Man, this. Should I redo the whole list? Maybe this should have been at my top 10. I love this record. Chris Isaak, Heart Shaped World. Now, Chris Isaak kind of, he has a sound, and kind of that noir, noir 50s retro sound, but with some modern flourishes. I think this is his best record. where he really, of course, Wicked Game is on there. That's his biggest song. But I think this whole thing kind of maintains that mood. It's just awesome. Tears for Fears. We did a Tears for Fears video a while back, and I love Tears for Fears. Their most ambitious release, Seeds of Love, which I think is partly successful in reaching that ambition. Um, man, Sowing the Seeds of Love. Yeah, there's great songs on here. Kind of where they're really trying to find their inner Beatle. Hey, the Rolling Stones finally make a big comeback here with Steel Wheels, which I think has aged well. We did our Stones week a while back, and this was one that I was like pleasantly, revisiting. I was like, man, it's better than I remembered. It's actually a pretty good record. John Mellencamp puts out Big Daddy, which is fantastic. Actually, this is really good. It's real kind of Americana, real focus on sort of the acoustic instruments, but it's also got some electric stuff in there too. So it's a nice mix in there. Um, yeah, great song, great songwriter on here too. Awesome. He's still kind of hitting a good streak. Lou Reed puts out one of my favorite albums of his, New York. Right, New York. Lou Reed. Uh, God, this is so good, so gritty. There's Lou. Dirty Boulevard was the big song off of there, which is just awesome. I mean, Lou really kind of finds his songwriting groove again, and just great guitar, just full gritty guitar sound in there, but also kind of cool melodies and good song, just great songwriting. Romeo Had Juliet, Halloween Parade, which is it's a kind of a cool song. If I remember right, that was he kind of goes through all these different characters who were no longer with us at the time, and I think it's most of them had people he knew that had died of AIDS and all that during the decade. Anyway, it's a good song. Um, Last Great American Whale, Straw Man rocks. Yeah, Lou Reed, New York. All right, a couple other things here on CD. Stevie Ray Vaughan puts out his last album, or at least he put out that Family Style with Jimmy Vaughan, and then he died. And there were some posthumous releases, but this is his first or his last kind of full record under his own name with Double Trouble, In Step. His biggest success too. It was huge. I mean, I saw him twice on this tour, um, and then of course he was killed. In fact, I think last time I saw him was about a month before he died. It's when he was co-headlining with Joe Cocker, which was awesome. And then I also saw him earlier, still touring for this, when he was co-headlining with Jeff Beck. That was amazing too. But yeah, In Step. There you go. This one, I highly recommend this. Oh man, I need to wrap this up. We're almost done, but man, this is so good. I highly recommend this. The Neville Brothers, Yellow Moon. So good. It's just got this great kind of Louisiana swampy vibe, and it's just great. All right. We're going here. Roy Orbison puts out Mystery Girl. This was great. He was working on this when he died, if I remember right, and then so they posthumous released it, but it was pretty much done. I mean, he was almost done with it, and so produced by Jeff Lynne, I believe. Yeah. Anyway, or Jeff Lynne did a lot of work with him on it. But You Got It was a great hit. It's Man, he had a lot more in the tank. He's so good. This is so good. Oh crap, the Pixies, Doolittle. I mean, what do you say about that? All right. John Lee Hooker puts out this great comeback record, The Healer, where it's John Lee Hooker with a bunch of guests kind of working with him, like Bonnie Raitt and Robert Cray, Canned Heat, Los Lobos, and George Thorogood. And most notably, the title track, I think, is brilliant. Santana is with Hooker. Honestly, it's not so much because of Hooker. It's Santana and his band lay down this just killer groove, and Carlos Santana's guitar playing is just great on there. But that was a cool comeback for John Lee Hooker. All right, two more real quick. I don't know if you ever heard of Zucchero Sugar Fornicati. If you're in Europe, probably. Just great Italian rock star who a buddy of mine got me into a long time ago, and I've just bought like everything he's put out. Sings mostly in Italian. It doesn't matter. It's still great music. Oro, incenso, and birra, which is gold, incense, and beer, I think is the translation there. Um, yeah, there's a song on there called "Wonderful World," which Eric Clapton plays some great guitar on there. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I had to describe it. It's just well, this record, '89, it's very '80s, but it's got some killer grooves and great bass playing on there. Whoever played the bass on there, great bass playing on there. He's got kind of this kind of good gritty rock voice. I really like his voice, his vocal, his singing. I don't know what the hell he's singing about most of the time, but I don't speak Italian. But his vocals I think are awesome. All right, last thing, soundtrack to Glory, the brilliant film Glory, which I think should have won Best Picture that year. But was it directed? I'm drawing a blank here on who. Yeah, anyway, great film. Starring Denzel Washington and Morgan Freeman, Matthew Broderick and Carrie Elways, and Andre Brower and some others. True story of this all black regiment in the Civil War. Anyway, great film, but beautiful soundtracks, stunning. Oh, James Horner. James Horner did the music. Yeah, by James Horner, and beautiful soundtrack. All right, 19. What did I leave out? So let's talk 1989 in the comments, guys. Man, what a year! Sorry that one went a little long, but there's a ton to talk about in '89. So what do you guys think? Did I leave anything out? What's your ranking? What'd you like in '89? What I get right? What I get wrong? Let's talk 1989. Thanks for watching, guys. Please do subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, like the video, share the videos, blah blah blah. All right, we'll see you next time on Amity Tracks.